you want to know where the magic happens? The magic always happens outside of your comfort zone. And so you might have a comfort zone right now that says, well, I don't like to speak, and I really just want to be quiet, and I just want to sit at the back of the room. But I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you to get out of that comfort zone, because you might have solutions for people. You might have answers in you to questions that people are asking. You might have solutions in you to problems that people are facing. You might have healing in you for wounds that people are feeling. And that has everything to do with becoming an exceptional speaker, maybe even building a business as an exceptional speaker. Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning into this video where I want to spend a couple of moments talking about building a business as an exceptional speaker. Guess what? Communication is back. And I'll tell you what, I don't think it ever went away. But what's so amazing to me is the incredible emphasis that we're seeing literally all over the world on people who are learning the art and the craft of how to become an exceptional communicator. And I want to aim this video towards people who might be in the audience who have some kind of interest in developing potentially a business as a speaker. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it becomes your sole income. It could become that, but it could also be for those of you who would like to expand your reach and expand your audience, and also have more opportunities to speak to different audiences. When I started my speaking career, I'm not going to tell you how old I am now, and it's probably obvious, but many years ago, I'll tell you what, there was something that was so unbelievable that happened in my life. Because what I started to discover is, at first, I was like looking desperate for opportunities. Will somebody, anybody give me an opportunity to speak? And now there's so many speaking opportunities that come that I can't, I mean, for many, many years, I can't even keep up with all of the opportunities to speak. And it's truly a privilege. It's truly a blessing. And I've made many millions of dollars as a speaker. And so I want to share just a little bit of wisdom that I've learned over the years. Now, I want to tell you about some feedback that I got one day. So one day I was doing a 2-day workshop in a city. I'm in Canada, so this was a Canadian city, large Canadian city with, a couple of million people. And as I was, finishing this workshop up, and, we had given out the certificates, and, everybody was on their way out, a lady came up to me and she said, wow, that was an unbelievable workshop. I loved that experience. I love what I learned, but can I give you some feedback? And I said, absolutely. I'm always open to feedback. I mean, what kind of fool doesn't want to hear feedback? Feedback, I've heard it said, is the breakfast of champions. And so I want to eat my breakfast too. And so she said, I want to give you some feedback. And she said, you're not that good. That's what she said to me. That's literally what she said. And I said, well, thanks for that. I don't think I'm that good either, but can you be more specific? Because I don't know if I'll get a lot of help just walking out of here feeling I'm not that good. And she said, well, I watched you all day over the last 2 days. And she said, I just want to let you know. And she had been in Toastmasters, and I'm not sure exactly how Toastmasters work, but she said that she was sort of a grand wizard, or she had gone through the echelons to the very top in her province, in her region, that from a speaking mechanics perspective, that I had failed all of the tests that they have. And I said, I appreciate that. I've been doing this for a long time. And I said, I will let you know as well that there's a bit of a difference between, a 2-day workshop and doing a 5-minute Toastmaster speech, right? Obviously, the whole dynamic is completely different. But can I just ask you, I said, how much money have you made as a speaker? And her eyes went down like this right away. And she said, well, I haven't made any money as a speaker. I've just progressed through I'm a wizard. I'm a grand wizard for Toastmasters or whoever she was with. And I said, can I give you some feedback? And she said, sure. And I said, well, maybe the next time you give feedback to somebody who's made millions of dollars doing something, you might just want to make sure that you've actually done something in that field. Because there's always a difference between the laboratory and real life. How many of you know that? I mean, like at the end of the day, what I perfect in the laboratory is great, and that's a wonderful place to perfect it. But what about when I get into the real world? And that's the challenge between a lot of these people who are stuck in a laboratory of speakers, right? Where it's like, hey, let's all learn how to speak, and let's all pat each other on the back, and oh, you're so good, which is great. I mean, hey, I'm all for that too. I run speaking classes. I think it's great. But I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned, just actually like now literally having made millions of dollars with my mouth and the capacity to communicate and the capacity to speak. Let me tell you one thing, building a business as an exceptional speaker, it is an unbelievable challenge. Like, it's not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. It's not like anybody who's got a shtick or a soapbox or wants to rant is going to make money in this business. I'll tell you what, people can absolutely spot a mile away somebody who is actually not worthy to be paid in this industry. And so I want to talk with you about how you can actually be worthy to be paid, because I think it's an unbelievable opportunity. And I also think it's an unbelievable privilege. Like, let me just say, I'm old enough. I've been speaking before YouTube was a thing, right? That's how long I've been speaking. So again, I apologize. I won't say how old I am, because then you'll think I'm too old. But I started my speaking business literally before YouTube was even in existence. And when I think about that, like, I started my career speaking to rooms filled with people, sometimes 5 people, sometimes 500, sometimes 5,000, sometimes 50,000. And all of that was great. And then the digital age came along. And all of a sudden, now I can shoot a video where I am right here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And this video will literally be seen by people all over the world. I mean, what an unbelievable opportunity. I mean, the whole mainstream media with the big CNN logos and the MSNBCs and all of these people, they often get less views, far less views than somebody like a Joe Rogan or somebody like a Dr. Jordan Peterson. And that's because the world has changed. And so if you're watching this video and you're saying, well, I'm not going to be a Tony Robbins, there's no way. Absolutely. Don't be that. Because he's awesome all on his own. We don't need 2 of him. We need 1 of him and 1 of you. We need 1 of what he brings to the world, and we need 1 of whatever you bring to the world. And so you don't have to stand on a big stage, on a big platform with thousands of people to be able to build a business as an exceptional speaker. You really just need, I think, to have that heart and that mindset that says, I'm ready to go and I'm ready to grow. So let me just share with you 3 things I've learned about building a business as an exceptional speaker. Number 1, and this is so important, is that it's all about them. And when I say them, here's what I mean. When speakers get out of a focus on their customer, on their listener, on their audience, and they start to try to manipulate a certain agenda or push a certain narrative, all of a sudden people just tune you out. There's something in sort of human psychology, actually neuroscience, teaches us this. The most important thing to your brain is your survival. And so what that means at like a really simple level is that you are fundamentally attracted to people who have your best interests at heart, and you're fundamentally repelled by people who are trying to manipulate you. Now, the problem in today's world, and it's not just today, I mean, it's been the problem since humankind's existence, is that some people are really good at manipulation. But eventually that all comes to the surface. I mean, take a look at Justin Trudeau. I mean, hello, right? I mean, perhaps the greatest manipulator of all time, at least in Canada. And he has been roundly exposed and vilified as perhaps the worst prime minister in Canadian history. Thank God he's on the way out the door. But what he learned, I mean, you got to remember, he was a drama teacher. I mean, imagine a G7 country electing a drama teacher as its prime minister. I mean, that's just embarrassing as a Canadian. It's myself. Not that there's anything wrong with teachers or drama teachers in particular, but clearly, as you can see in the decline of the Canadian economy and standard of living in the 9 years that Trudeau has been in power, you can see that being a drama teacher doesn't really equip you to run a $1 trillion economy. And the challenge for him is it was all show. It was all what's on the surface. It was all, look, I got great hair and I'm kind of handsome. And then what happens is that manipulation strategy over a period of time will carry you. Pretty soon, the emperor has no clothes. Pretty soon, the nakedness of that individual is well exposed. And what I have found, having been now a professional speaker, I mean, I got my first check as a professional speaker over 30 years ago. So I apologize again how old I am. But I'll tell you what, is that people can sense your heart. And they sense your heart in a way that it's hard for them to describe. Like, they can't necessarily articulate it. So they'll come out and they'll say things, you're a manipulator, or you're selfish, or you're oriented only for you. And yet what they really mean is, I really want to listen to somebody who cares deeply about my hopes, my dreams, and my fears. What's really interesting is that the best speakers actually model listening. And I know this might sound almost like counterintuitive, but it's like when I'm a good speaker, I'm mirroring back to the audience. I see you. I hear you. I understand you. And what I'm doing is mirroring back to my audience the fact that what I'm saying is actually going to meet your deepest fears, your greatest hopes, your biggest dreams. So being a great speaker isn't so much about being a great speaker, it's actually about being a great listener. And that's really interesting because, well, how do you listen to your audience? Well, a lot of the time, you've got to pay a lot more attention to your audience than your notes. And so imagine this is my notes, and if I'm just sitting here like this and I'm not paying attention to you, what happens is I'm not listening to the nuance and the subtlety of your heart. I'm not actually reading the comments. I'm not actually reading the room. I'm just more stuck on what I've got to say rather than what I need to hear. What I need to hear is what you're feeling. What I need to say then is the reflection of what I've heard from you with some element of a solution mixed in. And so I just want to tell you, if you want to be a great speaker, be a great listener. Have a lot of coffees with people. Have a lot of dinners with people. Step onto a bunch of Zoom meetings with people. Listen to them. You know, in Canada, I don't want to be too hard on our Prime Minister, but I'll tell you what, my loathing for him comes out of a very authentic place because I care about my country very deeply, and he's wrecked our country. And one of the greatest examples of that is, you may have heard of the trucker convoy and all of these people who kind of took over. They drove their trucks to the city of Ottawa. I mean, it still seems in dispute, but there was 1,200 or so trucks. That's kind of what you hear. I don't know. I wasn't there. I didn't count. But, let's just say it was 1,000 trucks, and they kind of shut down downtown Ottawa, which is where our government is. And they showed up and the media came to them and they said, "What would you like?" And they said, "We just want to talk to the Prime Minister. We just want to tell them that we're tired of the vaccine mandate, that we're tired of the mask mandates, that we just want to kind of live our lives. Could we talk to the Prime Minister?" And he would not meet with them. And eventually, after 3 weeks, our Prime Minister, for the first time in literally Canadian history, the Prime Minister invoked the Emergency Act. Now, his father had previously invoked what's called the War Measures Act, but that was in relationship to an actual terrorist threat where somebody had died. These truckers were having hot tubs, on the streets of Ottawa. They were having bouncy castles. And sure, it was a nuisance and they were honking their horns. But all of a sudden, the Prime Minister calls in the Canadian police, and they come in there with their batons and their riot shields, and they beat these protesters. I mean, they trampled one old Indigenous grandmother under a horse. They did all kinds of horrible things simply because he wouldn't listen, right? Now, imagine the power of listening in your life, what it unlocks. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're going to be a great speaker, start by being a great listener. It's all about them. But the second thing about being an exceptional speaker is that it's all about you. Now, it starts all about them, but then it's also all about you. And what does this mean? This is the power of you learning how to share your story. Now, your story is an unbelievable, intricate sort of tapestry of events, occurrences. It's the things that have been said to you. It's the things that you've said. It's the things that have been done to you. It's the things that you've done. It's the environment that you were raised in, but it's also the environment that you've created. Like, your story is not just, well, I was born and I'm on my way to dying, right? It's actually something that you're both the recipient of, so you were born into a family of origin, you experience certain things, but then it's also something that you're creating. I mean, you're not responsible for the story that you received as a child, but as an adult, you are 100% responsible for creating a brand new story. I think about my own life, and I think about, the abuse that I experienced as a child, and the poverty, the severe, violent, physical, verbal, emotional abuse, the poverty that I grew up in, and I'm not responsible for that. But imagine if I then just said, well, I was abused, therefore I'll go abuse. I was hurt, therefore I'll go hurt. I was mistreated, therefore I get to go mistreat. Like, it's unbelievably criminal to think that way. Tragically, a lot of people do. And when they think that way, what ends up happening is then they act that way. They behave that way because thoughts become things. And so when you think about your life, what you want to think about is, I'm not just a victim of a bunch of things that have happened to me and it sucks to be me. No, I'm the architect of a story. Every day. Now, I am also a recipient of it. And so I'm not going to deny my past. I'm not going to try to put it in a box and walk away from it, but I'm actually going to understand the lessons of my past, where those events and traumas and hurts and good things and bad things and benefits and consequences and all of those things have shaped me. But then who do I want to become? Now, what does this have to do with becoming a great speaker? Well, it has everything, because the most important thing I think about being a great speaker is learning stories. Story is the thing that captivates people, unlike anything else. Every single person is right in the middle of their story, and they want to hear from their speakers, is there anything in your story that can help me in mine? And so great speakers don't just tell their story because they need some kind of cathartic release, some sort of therapy session that happens to be witnessed by whoever's listening. No, they share their story because there's a direct and meaningful, tangible benefit to the audience. Facts tell, but stories sell. And the human brain is wired for story in ways that it is not wired for anything in any other way. When you begin to share your story, you connect with people, you build trust, you build vulnerability. That presence begins to shape not only you as you're communicating it, but it begins to shape the minds of the listeners. And I just think that there's so much power. I mean, you think about the analogy, the metaphor of the butterfly, right? The caterpillar who becomes a butterfly. Like all of us is doing that. Maybe for you, it's in your finances. You're moving from, a caterpillar to a butterfly. Maybe it's in your relationships. Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's in your sense of worth and identity. We're all on this journey from, I'm in this cocoon and I'm all sort of limited and I'm all sort of trapped. And pretty soon, if I'm really living my life, I've spread my wings as that beautiful butterfly. And now I'm impacting other people. And that's really the power there is. And so great speakers understand, number one, it's all about them, the audience. But number two, it's all about me. In other words, I got to understand my own story. I've got to learn the skills for sharing it. And the third thing that I would say building a business as an exceptional speaker is it's all about, number three, mastery. And what is mastery? Now, mastery is learning skills. Now, this is really, really important. I think that 2025, if you want to thrive, if you're into rhyming, it's going to be about a separation of the skilled from the unskilled. It's not going to be a separation from the talented to the untalented, because the world is filled with people who are talented, but they're broke, okay? It's filled with talented people who have no audience. Because the difference between talent and skill is that talent is something that you're born with, whereas skill is something that you hone. It's something that you develop. It's something that you shape. They say that Abraham Lincoln said, if I was given 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. And I just love that so much because we all have an axe. An axe is your behaviors. It's your personal and professional development. And so a lot of us are out there with a dull axe and we're hacking away at this tree and we're trying to make something happen. And there's Abraham Lincoln over there and he's just in the shed whistling away, sharpening his saw. Why would he sharpen his axe? Why would he sharpen his saw? Because when you have a sharp saw, you can cut through all of the noise and you can be heard. And one thing I've thought about over the years, like who are the people who make the biggest income and have the biggest impact? I'll tell you what, it's not the people with the most talent. What I actually discovered is that there's 5 critical skills. Can I give them to you? 5 critical skills that I've discovered that almost every successful person has. Number one, they know how to market. And that doesn't mean that they're right down like in Photoshop doing all the graphic design. No, but they understand the power of marketing. The second critical skill I've seen in the most successful is social media. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they get all of the nuances of every single platform, but they become really skilled at their narrative on those platforms. Number 3, they know how to sell. Number 4, they understand the art or the skill of persuasion. And then number 5, they have the skill of public speaking. Now, what I want to offer to you is that 2 of those 5 skills, and actually in some ways you could say all 5 of them, marketing, selling, social media, persuasion, and speaking, all of them have to do with exactly what I'm talking about today, and that's becoming an exceptional speaker, becoming an exceptional communicator. Do you want to know where the magic happens? The magic always happens outside of your comfort zone. And so you might have a comfort zone right now that says, well, I don't like to speak, and I really just want to be quiet, and I just want to sit at the back of the room. But I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you to get out of that comfort zone, because you might have solutions for people. You might have answers in you. You might have answers in you to questions that people are asking. You might have solutions in you to problems that people are facing. You might have healing in you for wounds that people are feeling. And that has everything to do with becoming an exceptional speaker, maybe even building a business as an exceptional speaker. And so, number 1, it's all about them, that's serving others. Number 2, it's all about you, and that's your story. And then number 3, it's all about mastery. That's learning the set of skills that you need. That's why I want to extend to you a warm invitation to join us for Elevate EST. Stands for Exceptional Speaker Training. And we're running an academy, the Elevate EST Academy. We're going to be doing a deep dive into giving you all of the skills and tools that you need so that you can master the art of communication. You can connect with your audience. You can make that sale. You can ask that person on a date. You can actually say what you think in a way that doesn't turn people off, but turns people on and draws them to you. And so all the information about the Elevate EST Academy is in the post below. Please do join us for this. It is a game changer. And let me promise you, 2025, hey, it's your year. So let's go and let's get after it right now. Hey, I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear, what your thoughts are. Like, who are some of the favorite speakers that you have? Who are some of the people who have impacted your life the most? And of course, please do like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next episode.